Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked, the podcast where we discuss business, leadership, and personal development. My name is Margaret Smith, and I'm the Director of Operations for Pickett Street Properties, a real estate team out of Bothell, Washington. And I'll be here every week with our owner and team leader, Jesse D. Moore. We'll be digging into concepts and ideas that have helped us both personally and professionally. And you'll also get a chance to hear from local and national experts that we know provide massive value to get to the point where it all finally clicks. Hey guys, welcome to Finally Clicked with Margaret Smith and Jesse Moore. It's a snowy day in Seattle. People are freaking out.
It's Snomagedden.
It's one of my favorite times of year.
You know what? I hate any time of year where people or like newscasters and weather men have to combine words like snowpocalypse or Snomageddon or I don't know. I mean,
they're forced to be creative and they just don't have a creative bone in their body.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like
Snomageddon, really?
Snomageddon.
Yeah.
2019.
People outside of Washington are just like, what's going on up there? You get a lick of snow and all of a sudden people are at Costco freaking out buying all sorts of stuff.
You know what though? I think this shows a problem that's endemic within our culture.
Oh wow.
How come we don't have a lot of grace for people in general? And so this is my point. Sure, if you're from Montana, such as like I am, then it'd be easy to make fun of these liberal cistards on the coast that don't know how to drive in snow.
Sure.
But the reality is our infrastructure isn't set up for it.
True.
Why? Because it doesn't snow here. That's why.
It snows once every It's been like 9 years, you had said, since the last major snow. So yeah, my dad's like, let me get he wants to get a generator always, every single year. For the 2 days they lose electricity.
Well, that's the thing. It snows maybe once a year here. Maybe. Last year it didn't snow at all. Mm-mm. Our kids had 0 snow days last year. I think that's correct. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, they had like 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. But it happens all at once. Mm-hmm. It doesn't usually stay around for more than 24 hours.
Yeah.
And yes, if we get a little bit of snow, everything shuts down. Mm-hmm. And that's because we live on the coast in a very moderate climate. And so why spend millions of dollars on snow plows and gravel and salt when we don't have a need for it?
Yeah, I totally agree.
And so, yes, our city shuts down because we're not...
Embrace it. Enjoy it.
Right.
Yeah. I have to say, having moved up closer to downtown Everett, I'm really impressed with what Everett has done in the few days that it snowed. They had plows down our road and sand and all sorts of stuff. I was like, this is nothing we ever got in Lake City, down in the 206 by Seattle. That's my context.
Context. Hashtag context. Margaret's dropping area codes, city names that people don't have any reference of.
So thank you.
This is your weakness.
This is my weakness.
Actually, this is a weakness of Margaret's. Margaret's weakness is context.
Is it a weakness? That's going to be a new T-shirt name, by the way, because so many people love how you talk about you bring in the context, and so we're going to have a T-shirt that just says context.
Jesse, context more.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about our strengths and weaknesses. We had a couple ideas that we're throwing around for segments, and I thought this one was an awesome idea just to go through and talk about it.
Right, just off the seat of our pants.
Off the seat of our
pants. Because
pants.
I just got back from vacation.
Yep.
We haven't had a lot of time together to brainstorm, to ideate.
Ooh, ideate. I like that.
It's a strength of mine.
Jeez.
And
then I taught my class on Thursday, and a lot of things came out of that. So we were talking about that at lunch, and I think this would be a super interesting one for people.
Yeah. So we're gonna shoot from the hip, and it's not fully shooting from the hip.
No.
I have a piece of paper with words on it in front of me. I'll be working off of. Margaret has 15 pieces of paper she's going to be working off of. So let's jump into it.
Okay.
Tit for tat.
All right.
You go first, I'll go second.
Okay.
That type of thing.
I like it.
Also, and let me preface.
I want to preface. Can that be another T-shirt, please?
No. I want to preface this by saying that I'm a big believer that your strengths are also your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. When I used to interview for jobs, that would be a common question,
I
right?
wish I could have sat in on that interview.
Like, what are your strengths? And then they go, what are your weaknesses? And then I'd say, well, funny that you mentioned that, because I'm a big believer that your strengths, if you depend on your strengths too much, that can be your greatest weakness. And they're like, oh my God.
That's such a typical answer.
How much
now.
can we pay you?
Yeah.
No, but it's true. Like, it's true for
true.
me. And
Yeah.
so I wrote down kind of the yang to every yin. So if I mention a strength, I think we should say what the counterpart is, how that makes us weak.
Okay.
Or how our dependence on that strength can
Sure.
show up as a weakness.
That's easy. Yeah.
That's
Give me
easy?
something harder.
All right.
Do you want me to start with a strength?
All right, let's go. I want you to start with context.
I don't like to give context.
What's the inverse of that then?
The inverse of context. Oh gosh, this is hard. No context. So meaning like just random thoughts and ideas that pop out of my head with no ability to connect it to any sort of situation.
Random. Hashtag random. You are random.
I
You're
am.
a random person.
I think that's come out more since I've been at this job because I was never welcomed or allowed. And that is actually, I think it's almost a way, I think I'm becoming more of a verbal processor because I just didn't do it before.
Be careful. I know what that's like.
Yeah, I'm learning that. Yeah. So yeah, I would say context is definitely a weakness of mine. And it's because I think, looking back, I was always told I needed to speak up more in high school. And I didn't because I was processing and I would go home and write it out. So when I'm verbally processing, it is random things. And so I probably need more time to come up with complete answers.
You want to take a minute now?
No, I'm good on that.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a hard podcast to listen to.
Yeah, it really would.
We're going to have an introverted moment.
Oh, a moment
All
of
the
silence
introverts
for introverts.
take a moment of silence as Margaret processes her response.
I'm good. That was
Got it.
good.
Okay.
And actually, I'm like really enjoying, like with the podcast, you're right. You have to be more off the seat of your pants, whatever that is. And if people can accept me for who I am with my random words and verbiage, this is actually super fun for me. Like I do enjoy just talking because as we'll see in my Strengths Finder, Intellection is my number one.
Right.
Which is why I love talking to you about digging into stuff because you're a smart person. So
I'm glad that I created an environment where you could go off the cuff of your pants or the seat of your sleeves.
The seat of my sleeves. That might be the title. Oh, God. That's great.
All right. So I kind of hijacked that by throwing in context right from the start. So go ahead and share a strength.
All right. My first strength is relentless positivity.
For real.
For real.
For real.
For reals. I've known this for a long time about myself. And then I was looking back when I graduated college, and I like to keep notes from people. And I had notes from some of my aunts growing up. And they had said in several of them, my Aunt Coco specifically, because we spent a lot of time with her growing up, she said when I was like 8 or 9 that anything I did was fun. I made anything I was doing fun. If we were going to the grocery store, I had a damn good time going to the grocery store. And so I've actually realized how much that has followed me, and I'm still the same way. And I think it's why people like to spend time with me, and I appreciate that because I don't have to be hugely entertained. You don't have to worry about putting on a show for me. I mean, anything's a good time. It takes very little to make me happy. And I think maybe that's the blissful ignorance too of just like enjoying life for what it is. But the con side to that is that I might oftentimes be so optimistic or so positive that I lose track of the reality of the situation, or I don't, I think I've gotten better at it. But again, like maybe if I'm not grounded in the reality of it, I'm not able to make as good of a decision. I'm just like, let's go. We'll do it. We're going to make it happen.
Do you think it might make you more impulsive? If you're always trending positive and you haven't, you have an opportunity to decide to do something.
Sure.
You think it might make you more impulsive?
I can think of that in relation to my duplex. Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea, right? Mm-hmm. A good example, I think.
Totally. And I also like, I wish I was more impulsive in life sometimes. And so maybe that's my way of like allowing myself to do it.
You mean like going on vacations somewhere other than Italy? Mm-hmm. Like that?
What do you mean? Like not going down to Italy? Not going to Italy?
What did you just say before that?
I said, I think I wish I were more impulsive sometimes. Like I had that natural behavioral tendency.
That's what I'm saying. So instead of like planning a trip to this ideal location and everything else, maybe just like going for a road trip for the weekend. Mm-hmm. That doesn't apply.
No, I
to
guess
being
not.
impulsive.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. Yeah. It's that ability to anything can and so it's hard. There's processing.
You also have a strength of throwing like 5 syllables together.
I
in a
know.
row.
There's processing happening right now. I literally, truly believe in my heart of hearts, I can do whatever I want to do in life. And I know there's a lot of books that talk about how we talk about raising kids and how if you give them too idealistic of a view, they'll just be constantly disappointed. However, for some reason, it works for me. Like if I want to get something done, my mom has rooted in me a belief that I can actually make it happen. So I don't know. There's definitely a con to it.
Well, I can think of some cons to it, but let's talk more about it. So I would say yes. And that's one of the reasons why I hired you, is I wanted someone that was going to be kind of ruthlessly positive every day, or as many days as possible. And I think the con for you is much like when I remember being in high school and being the positive person and being positive all the time. And then one day you're not at 100%, you're like at 85. Everybody asks you what's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And like comes around and,
Totally.
everyone notices when you're not so positive. And that's hard for you.
Totally. Very, very hard. Because it's like I'm having to process my feelings in front of everyone.
Yeah, when sometimes you just need to, your flame is low, you need to retreat.
I need to retreat.
Into a
be
cave.
by myself. Rejuvenate. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a positive person, but not to the degree that you are. In fact, I can tend to be a little bit tragic and sad, and I like it sometimes. But that just shows, again.
I think some of these things remind me too of the fact that we are both artists. Like it's kind of a dramatic personality tendency, and I think it's necessary actually for being creative and having good ideas, is that kind of tendency. Not that other people that aren't dramatic or aren't artists can't do it, but there's something about it that brings about a whole different part of your brain.
Yeah, I definitely get in modes, like where I get in a mode where I'm a sad sack and I'm listening to guitar and indie music.
Oh yeah, man, I can turn on some
like some coffee house type channel.
Well, I go back to John Mayer because I broke up with when my boyfriend broke up with me in college. I drove towards Mount Rainier in my car playing John Mayer, Georgia, that song. If I turn that on, man, the tears can just come like that. Or because I connect music with events in my life, like a tape in my head. So when I need to go back to a certain time, I just turn on a song and it's like, boom, waterfall, just happening.
Okay, hashtag context. Why Mount Rainier?
I went to school at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma.
Oh, okay. There's
Shout out
some
Tacoma.
context. It seems like you just picked a mountain. I'm going to drive.
Well, we do live in Washington State.
I'm going to drive to that mountain and play John Mayer.
You can kind of see Mount Rainier from anywhere. There weren't many places to go in college other than your room. So if I wanted to,
I'm going to go to a high vantage point.
Granted, I didn't make it all the way to the mountain.
No,
because
shocker.
Yeah, I get towards.
I didn't make it to the top of the mountain when I was feeling sad and lonely.
But I drove towards it, and it was sunset and everything like that. It was very dramatic.
See, even there, you made that a positive thing.
Yeah.
Like sunset.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah. Beautifully dramatic.
All right. I wrote for a strength. I started with impatient as a strength.
Yeah.
And I say that as a strength because it means that I don't like to let things sit. I like to push things forward. I literally, when I leave, as far as like goals, daily goals and stuff, and I've said this before, so this shouldn't come as a surprise. I just like to push the ball forward.
Yeah.
I want to come here, come to work, and I don't feel accomplished unless I move the ball forward in some way. like today, I moved the ball forward. I contacted an old client, and I spoke to a few people in my sphere, and talked to someone who is indeed thinking of selling in the next month or two, and I booked an appointment.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That I moved the ball forward today. Impatience is a strength of mine. I'm able to use it to my advantage. Now, obviously, then that makes patience a weakness of mine. It's hard for me to be a patient person. However, as I age, I grow in wisdom, and it's interesting to me as I look back and I just realize how impulsive I was and how incompatible patience was with me, that I was really like ruthless about it.
For some reason, I'm thinking about this differently than I ever have before. Because of your environment growing up, what do you think your natural personality is actually when it comes to patience?
Oh, I think I'm a highly impatient person, naturally.
You think so? I'm just wondering if naturally you were actually more patient, but because of your surroundings, you became incredibly impatient.
All right, here's context again. I have to explain this to everybody, what you're talking about.
I know. I don't even care that they don't even know. This is so bad. This is why this is great to have you. Because I'm like intrigued now. I'm like,
All right, so what Margaret's talking about is that I grew up on a large cattle ranch in Montana. There weren't I didn't have, the closest neighbor was a mile.
Was there a neighbor?
I had an uncle, a quote unquote uncle. And this is a great uncle. He was, I don't know, he was in his 80s, probably when I was in my teenager. Like, he was in his 80s. He was older. Way older than me. He didn't leave the house. Like, we took the paper to him. He lived a mile away, and then another aunt lived another mile away. And at any time, we might not be talking to either of these people, right? So now, if you take those two people out, I had no one within.
And your sister wasn't a big talker.
2-mile radius.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah. There's a place on the ranch that literally one of the highest places on the ranch. You could see probably for 75 miles in any direction, and you wouldn't see a structure.
That's insane.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how remote this was. And so, being an extrovert and being raised in that environment made me highly frustrated in a lot of ways. And I had to kind of become someone I wasn't because of the environment I grew up in. So what Margaret's asking is, had I grown up, somewhere else in the city with more people around me, would I still be an impatient person? And I think I would be. Now, I don't want to get into the whole nature versus nurture thing, but my personality was formed at an early age, and I believe that if I'd moved at 3 or 4, I'd still be highly impatient. And I see it in my son. Yeah. My daughter has her mother's patience. My son has my impatience. I have my father's impatience, not my mother's patience. And so, Okay. There you go.
All right. My next strength. Connector.
Okay. This week.
Wait, are you going to do a shout out for something?
Oh my gosh. This one, right now, I am at my wit's end on this one.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm going to install a clock. I'm going to install a chest. I told you yesterday. I walked into your office yesterday because I've been gone on vacation. Yeah. So I'm my first day back, and maybe I'm a little more sensitive to some things than normal. Yeah. But you had 1,000 people in and out of your office asking you all sorts of questions. Yeah. And if you're a coach, you would have made $10,000 yesterday. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to make people, those chess timers?
I actually can't picture it, so I'm excited for it.
But when people come in and they want to talk to you or Sarah, they have to start the clock. Okay. And then we're going to let it run. And when they're done talking and they're leaving, they can stop it. Okay. But at the end of the day, I want them to see how much time they take. Yeah. And that's a direct result of you being a connector. Yeah. You are. You just find people, and it's that whole ring of reciprocity thing. What book was that from? The Give and Take?
Yeah, Give and Take.
So there's a book called Give and Take. We highly recommend it.
By Adam Grant.
And there's
Was that some context? I just threw context in there.
Good job. Yes. And there's an exercise in there called the Ring of Reciprocity. Yeah. And the basic context of that is that you ask people in a room what a need that they have. They express the need, and then using the people in the room and their connections and their network, can you provide a solution to this person? And we've done this in classes before successfully, right? And you are exceptional at this. That's why people always ask you if you have any EA admin candidates for employment, because you network with these people and you're great at connecting people. So absolutely, this is a strength of yours.
So I've thought about this too, with not just because I connector, I automatically think people, which came up in the Strengths Finder thing too. But I also think I was trying to explain this, how I do this in class, because it's not just connecting people, but in my head, I'm always constantly connecting, like, how would this system work with that? How would this person interact with that? And it's absolutely how my brain works. It's interesting.
Yeah, and actually, if you can't, you need the connection. You need to understand the connection.
I do.
Otherwise, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So I've seen you process something because you didn't get it.
Yeah.
You didn't, and you
I
were
have to get
frustrated
it.
by it until you finally got it, and then make connected
And then
the
I can
dots,
run with
and then
it.
you can go.
Yeah, yeah. So the downside to that would be exactly what you mentioned, which is just exhaustion of myself. So finding that balance and knowing when to say no, step back, who to spend my time pouring into, who to work, who to even, because there's times when people come to me with things and I'm like, okay, if something comes up, I'll mention it, but I don't make an effort. Like, I'm not a full-time recruiter. It's only if I know of someone that I'll spend time like, hey, you two should talk. And there's things that I just let go too, and I file it away in my brain, but I don't spend time thinking on it, or because that would be a whole nother full-time job. So it's just constantly finding that balance, which there is no balance. The counterbalance, I talked a lot about that on Thursday in my class. There's never a balance. It's making sure that you weigh towards the side that you need in that moment in your life. If you need more time at home, going home more. So that connector part, the negative side to that is just overuse.
All right, my second strength, I have ideation / vision. So I love coming up with creative concepts, creative solutions, creative businesses. I can't help myself. I put an idea in my head.
How many ideas do you think you come up with a week?
For what?
Anything.
Hundreds.
Yeah. So for those of you that haven't read the book Rocket Fuel, I just mentioned it to Jesse earlier, and they talk about that. It's one of the key characteristics of a visionary. And I thought about you because I was like, I know you don't even tell me half the ideas you probably come up with.
Yeah, well, and the reason I don't is because I'm not a good implementer. So that's the flip side of it. I'm good at ideas. I'm not good at finishing projects. I thought of my dad and growing up when I wrote this down because it's easy for me to start something. So, like, for instance, there was this project by the corrals. It feels weird saying a word like corrals that you never say in your normal life, and then you only use it.
Yeah.
Anyway. I had this project, and I started it, but I didn't finish it. And I knew that my dad made a value judgment on that. Because he valued people finishing their work, doing what they said they would do. And I remember having a really hard time with that when I was young, that I could always start 1,000 things, but I would easily become distracted and intrigued by starting something new versus finishing something I'd already started. So, and this is still true to this day. I can give you ideas all day long. Force me to sit down and implement it, and it's an arduous task for me.
So for you to implement Pickett Street must have been pretty painful.
Literally, and I've mentioned this before, but literally I was up until between 12 at night to 2 in the morning getting everything done. In order for me to implement I need no distractions.
Yeah.
So I needed to be in an environment with no other people in it.
Sounds like me, huh?
Right. Exactly. And I don't thrive there. I don't thrive. That's a really uncomfortable place for me to be.
Yeah.
Is to be like alone, especially then, alone with my thoughts, and then doing the work and getting it done and taking it from start to finish. Now, I had to get good at it.
Yeah.
So I did it, and I did it to the point where I could hire leverage to do it, some of it for me.
How'd you force yourself to do it?
Survival.
Yeah.
I really that's another bad thing about me that I'm still struggling with, and that is that I work best when my back's against the wall.
Yeah. We talked about that.
And in college, this was true. I would wait. I might write a 10-page paper between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 6 weeks to work on it.
Yeah.
Or 4 weeks or 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. But I was always constantly doing it at the very last minute.
Yeah.
Now, I wrote some amazing papers.
Mm-hmm.
And that somehow in that process, I figured out a hack that worked for me.
Yeah.
And part of that I've used the rest of my life. I don't want to procrastinate.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've found that I work better under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
This is highly frustrating for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I don't want my back against the wall.
No.
I don't want for my back to be against the wall before I get creative.
Yeah.
Or before I get intentional. Or
Yeah.
before I do the hard thing.
Yeah. So you're trying to figure out a way to make that feeling kind of replicated in an earlier time.
Yeah.
I've also learned, I learned that really quickly about you when you were first teaching your class when I started. Because I learned pretty quickly, I think it was after the first class really, or the second class, where I learned to kind of clear my schedule the day before your class. Because I knew you'd be working on your class, and I'd need to be ready to help you with whatever you needed, but not until the day before day of. Yeah. Okay. My third one is creativity. Did we go the opposite of yours? Did we do that?
Yeah, well, yeah, finishing projects, so yeah.
Okay.
All right, creativity. You are a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons why I hired you is because you had a photography business that you did in your spare time.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that showed motivation, drive, and creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I love creativity. I am naturally drawn to artists, and even on this trip to Mexico, met like a world-class artist. And I just think like attracts like, and I'm a creative person. I like to foster creativity in the workplace and in my personal environment at home. So, yeah, you're a highly creative person, and I think everyone knows that from your marketing pieces you create and everything else.
Yeah. So then the con to that would be, I could see one being, it's really, I need to get creative and be excited about a project for it to really work out well. Everything works out really well when I found that niche that I want within whatever it is, within a class, within a marketing program or a drip campaign that we're working on or whatever it is. I need to find what it is that gets me excited to use my creativity. Because if I don't, then it usually doesn't work as well. It doesn't produce as much.
Yeah, but sometimes things just have to get done,
They
right?
do. That's it. Yeah. So sometimes I think I can be slow to implement some things whereas I just need to get it done. And so I've started doing that more. But the con is I always want everything to be creative and fun and
Yeah, I think
and good.
a con that could come from this is, instead of things getting done in a timely manner,
Yeah.
you're waiting for inspiration.
Yeah.
At times.
Mm-hmm. Totally. That's the easy one.
I'm okay with that, though. I'd rather have something look inspired than just
getting
look
it
flat but done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I put negotiating as a strength. I've rubbed elbows with some great salespeople in my time, and someone I admire very much used to call me Midas, and not just with the idea that everything I touched turned to gold for sure, but the other part being that I was a great objection handler, and by being a great objection handler, obviously my ability to negotiate was kind of paramount. And so I know why I'm a good negotiator. The reason I'm a good negotiator is the way my brain works. I can think through every possible scenario, every possible answer, and the implications therein. And so for me, like when someone proposes something, I've already thought of that idea. I've thought of the pros and cons for that idea. I've weighed it against the other ideas, and I'm able to very successfully rank ideas from most advantageous to least advantageous.
Yep.
And I can I know how to navigate those waters. So
Yeah.
it's not even work for me. And
Just you, part of you. Yeah.
And so, and the good part is that my brain works that way. The bad part is my brain works that way, and it's hard to turn it off.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes the con side of being a good negotiator is that I can sometimes choose winning at any cost
Yeah.
over a successful compromise.
Yeah. I think that's a great I mean, you've known that about yourself for a while. It's a great self-awareness because you're one of the best negotiators in the state. And when I tell people this, and for people that don't know you, like they'll figure it out if they come up against Pickett Street in a negotiation with a client. But yeah, I told you from the very beginning it was one of the things I wanted to learn from you because I need that knowledge. And you know this now well enough that I think when you go into conversations with people and it's not about winning, it's about coming to a compromise, you are able to I don't know what you do, but you self-check yourself.
Well, and that's the thing is I think I've pretty much always been win-win. I don't think that's not true. But there have been times where in a face-off with someone that might be a rival or even an enemy, then I will choose winning at any cost over a reasonable solution just because I want to spite them from the earth. The word is smite, smite them from the earth. But yeah, and I've learned that, you know, I learned it years ago, and since I've learned it, I've learned to keep that in check. So
yeah, that's a good one. All right, my fourth one I put down as big picture thinker, and so oftentimes when people think of admin, they think we're all up in the details. We're detail, and I can turn on that detail switch. But I've always been a big picture thinker. I always go high above, looking down to see how do all the systems communicate, how do people communicate, how do communities, organizations, companies communicate. So I realize now in comparison to how some admin think, what an advantage that is for me, because I think it helps me to connect with you on a level that I don't think we could if I didn't have that ability. Because you're definitely, I mean, you have to be kind of a big picture thinker being a visionary. So I can I may not be able to understand how we get there quite yet, but I can at least go there with you. So that's a big strength of mine, and I think it gives me a step above or ahead of admin that can't quite do that. The con to that might be, I think that's where I like to be, actually. I think that's where I love to be when it comes to talking and building ideas. And so the con would be maybe not wanting to dig into the details because it actually bores me.
Yeah, I was thinking again about Sarah's role versus your role, and how your role is big picture and Sarah's is not as much. And that there are times when Sarah's out of town, you have to take over those duties. And I wish that people could see your face when you have to do those things, because it really it's hard for you to slow down.
It drains me. Yeah.
All right, I have wit or words.
I like that.
I have a different way of seeing things. I have a different way of seeing the world, and then I have a different way of articulating my thoughts, and I have weird analogies. And yeah, it's a strength of mine. I think being able to stand out and being able to be unique, and I think being interesting is extremely underrated. I was actually thinking about this recently on vacation, that this is probably one of my greatest attributes is that I'm interesting.
Totally. Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that I don't sound like anyone else. I don't look like anybody else. How I act is very unique. How I approach life is very unique. The gifts that I have are unique. The weaknesses I have are unique. And this is true of everybody. Not everyone is interesting.
No.
And so when I meet, and this is going to be a large we could break this up into a bunch of different podcasts. And what I mean by that is my inability to not be authentic. And so because I crave authenticity, then I want depth in the communication I have with people, because I'm looking for them. I'm looking to see who they are, and then I'm looking to see that who they are. I'm verifying that who they show me they are is who they are.
Yep.
And so I don't do small talk.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to. I don't pretend to. So I like having a unique way of saying things and of seeing the world.
I'm so glad you say that, because I like having a unique way of saying things too. And actually, we do share that love for like words and for, I guess, I don't know, just the English language, or like I think it's more the creative.
It's a form of creativity.
It's a form of creativity.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is I don't suffer fools. So if someone uses...
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
we can go back to Brett Shagru. And...
there you go. I was gonna try to say it without saying his name. But yeah, I said a word incorrectly one time. And you know what? In a longer form podcast where you're speaking for an hour, you just don't know what I'm gonna say. All right. So there. So back off. But I don't suffer fools, and so if someone says something to be true and it's not true, I can't just sit there and roll with it. Or if they say something and they use a word incorrectly, if it changes the context of what they're trying to say, then I get stuck on that. So, I mean, it's nice that I have a unique way of thinking. The problem is that sometimes I get stuck in a gear and it's hard to get it out. And when I communicate with other people, if they're not on the same level as I am, when it comes to that communication, it can be very challenging. And here's a good example of that. I pretty much always will lean to the logical side of any argument. And when people come at me from the emotional side, then I have challenges. Because I prize logic over emotion. I'm an emotional person. I'm a passionate person. It hasn't always served me well. And so because of that, I prize logic over emotion. So, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Okay. The last one I wrote down was implementer, which was a great word that you had brought up that hadn't really been covered by the other ones. So yeah, I can take something and make it happen. I mean, growing up, my mom had signs around the house that said, make it happen. So literally it was ingrained in me. You make it happen, Margaret. And I'm able to do it. And I think it's a part of it is just that I have really good follow through and I don't want to let people down. I believe that follow through builds trust. And so that's one of the few things I did in my first couple of years with you to help build that trust. You asked me to do something, I made damn sure it got done, and I did it faster than you usually wanted in order to start to build that trust so that you could learn to rely on me. I think implementers are really unique in that have the ability to not only just get it done, but get it done in the best, most efficient way possible, and make it so that can be repeatable, so we can build off of it. The first time I build a system, I try to build it in such a way that it can be built on top of. So, yeah, I think it's totally a strength of mine.
Yeah, here's what I'd say about this. In the workplace, I am a sloth, and you are an army ant.
An army ant.
And sloth, I hate saying that.
It's a weird name.
I hate saying that.
Yeah. They're actually
about
hugely
myself,
popular right now, though.
But the reality is, if you wrote down everything I did in the workplace in a day, and all the things you did in a day, it wouldn't even be fair. It wouldn't even be close. And it's because I'm the idea person, and I'm ruminating. I'm thinking, whatever I'm doing, it's less work. It's less implementing. And then you, as like an army ant, like you're building bridges and you're carrying leaves 10 times the size of your body. And I mean, your people are in and out of your office, and you're coaching and you're doing a million things. And I've been there. I've done that to some degree, not to the same degree that you do it, And so, I mean, I want people to understand that you do a lot. And that's why, that's why it's never a concern for me when you come in and when you leave. And I don't check when you clock in or clock out. And I don't worry about you working from home. because I know you're going to get more done at home than I'll get done in the office.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. The con side to that, I think, again, is just learning how to leverage myself so that I don't because I can implement to the nth degree, but the whole saying of we can only go so far by ourselves, we can go that much further with a team. I've been learning what to maybe start the foundation of something and then hand it off to Sarah, and I'm getting much better at that. Yeah.
I put authenticity as a strength of mine, and this is we're gonna have an episode about authenticity, and I'll be vulnerable, and I'll be scared probably a little bit, and that's just because I wasn't always able to be authentic or my authentic self, and it's been something that I took on starting 8 years ago, and that I've been highly focused on for about the last 5 years. And that's definitely a strength of mine. I am unabashedly myself. I am not prone to falsehoods, not prone to deception. What you see is what you get, and that's true across the board. The con for that is I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I can't pretend. So if I'm upset, you're going to know it. And I wish I was better at camouflaging that sometimes, but it's just not that possible for me. I guess the good thing is people know I'm upset.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's clear.
But it's challenging for me when, like, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and it's fine, everybody's fine, but then they say something that hits me wrong, and it visibly hits me.
Yeah.
And I can't even get a chance to, like, process it before they're like, what's up?
Yeah.
Why are you acting this way?
Yeah. And it can change the
And I really want to
conversation.
be like, oh, don't ask me because I will tell you. and then that could really change the context of this conversation, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's my reality. I have one more written down for myself, and that's my ability to read body language is a strength. I rely on this unconsciously, and it stems from my childhood, so it was ingrained in me to some degree. The challenging part about it is it frustrates my friends. If they inadvertently communicate through their body language something they meant to keep to themselves.
Yeah.
Or, again, that whole thing where they want the ability to process it before they tell me how they feel. And the reality is I make assumptions that are right most of the time, but I don't like assuming any of the time. And so it can lead to me making assumptions, and that's the weakness part of being able to read body languages.
Totally.
Sometimes you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes people cross their hands because their arms are sore or whatever, or their back is sore. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know everything that people are going through unless they tell you. And so, but that ability to read people is
yeah, I know what you
been
mean.
a huge benefit
I did
to
the
me.
same thing for myself. I don't think I'm as extreme as you are because I didn't grow up having to really do that, but I did because I wanted to make people feel. I always want to make people feel better. I think that's the my natural caregiver status or whatever. I've always read people. I can tell when my mom's upset, even when she doesn't tell me she's upset. I can tell when anybody's upset or angry or just kind of off. And yet again, you have to remind myself I don't know the whole story. Yeah.
Should we do each other?
Weaknesses
Yeah.
Sure.
Or strengths.
or strengths?
Or both.
Oh, okay.
Well, we've written these down for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now I'm just wondering if we want to one-off
Okay.
talk about what the other person's strength is.
Sure.
What we haven't talked about.
Oh, one that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Gosh, the ones that you said about yourself are probably ones that I would have picked out because for me, I think the ones I talk about about you would be number one, the visionary idea guy is what I talk about the most with other people. When I talk about why we have a partnership, why we're so good together with what we do in the business, it is because, like, even with this podcast, we can throw out ideas and you can filter through them and you know what's going to hit the audience. That's why our combination works so well. That's the number one reason for me why I love doing business with you, because you have that ability. And it's like I'm learning it from you in that way, because I think I have the capability to do it, actually.
I think so, too.
Actually, in that rocket fuel book, there's 2 assessments you take in the beginning to see if you're a visionary or an implementer. Well, I scored both. And so I think there's pieces of that are only coming out because of you, actually, the visionary piece, because I never had been taught how to do it before. That's what I talk about with most people about you, is that ability. And then also number 2 would be, and I mean, I know I had to earn it, but your trust in me. That's one of your other strengths. Because if you didn't have that, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. And I think that's a strength, because I've realized that your ability to let go of stuff to someone, you can actually do it. Yeah. You did it. And there aren't many business owners that do it. So those are my 2 number strengths that I talk to people about you.
That makes me think of a conversation I had with one of the Gary Keller's top 100 agents.
Recently?
It was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And she, there was a break in a session, and I went up to say hi, hello, and give her a hug. And she just, she intimated to me, she said, Jesse, I just want you to know that it's really, we had an opportunity to hang out personally with a few other friends. I don't know if it was that trip or I think it was the trip prior. And so she had mentioned to me, she goes, Jesse, I just want you to realize how important it was to me that you invited me, like you reached out to me personally, and that you invited me to be a part of this thing. And I go, yeah, of course, no problem. And I go, but why is like this is affecting you more than I feel like it should? Like, why is it such a big deal to you?
Yeah. And
she said, before I knew you, I watched you, and I could tell that you were someone that didn't let very many people in, but when they were in, they were in. And I agree with you that once I trust, like my ability to give someone like 100% trust, I'm able to do that. I don't give it to everybody, and you have to go through this filter. But once you get through the filter, I can absolutely move in complete autonomy with that person. Yeah. And that can be in my relationship with you at work or personally. And it can be in my relationship with my fiance. Like I trust her and I can move in that. And then friends that I know that I can be my authentic self with, they get it too. It's all tied together. But I love that free expression. I love that ability to trust people, to just be myself. That's my favorite spot to be in.
Yeah, can't do that with everybody.
You can't.
No.
That's a different podcast.
You know what? So our friend Julian, who listens to this podcast often too, is from Marysville, trying to give context. He sent me this image the other day, just yesterday, it was a quote, and it said basically, like you always thought you were an introvert, but maybe actually you've been an introvert because you haven't been surrounding yourself with the right people. And when you surround yourself with that comfort of the right people who you can be yourself with, then you become the extrovert you actually are. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so interesting, because I do feel more comfortable than I have in a long time. And that's why people are questioning, am I really an introvert? And so I think comfort level has so much to do with and being authentic, being real, having our real talents come out.
For sure. I just want to clarify something. You're an introvert.
I really do get my energy from being alone.
Right.
Yeah.
But introverts still socialize with people.
That's true. We're not totally boxed in.
You still have friends. You still
still talk to people.
You still want to have relationships with 100% trust. That doesn't go away.
No, yeah.
That's not. Just to be clear, I want to be clear.
We're not recluse.
That just because you like to talk to people that you trust 100% doesn't mean you're an extrovert.
Yeah, true.
Believe me, you're an introvert. I know you well enough to know. You were so and here's my proof. People always like it when we get off script anyway.
Yes, totally.
All right, so I go to Mexico. I shared that story of my kids and trying to leave for Mexico that whole
debacle. Yeah.
We get to Mexico. It's 85 degrees the entire time. There's no rain. It's perfect weather. And while we're gone, Seattle gets a snowstorm, which we never get, right? And
legit,
it
7-8 inches. Yeah.
Now I'm going to forget why I'm talking about this.
My introvertness.
Right. So I'm in Mexico, and now there's all this. I'm listening to the background communication on social media and with our team about coming into the office because the roads are scary and icy and
People have anxiety.
oh man, I swear to God, you want to get people. Here's how you get people off social media. Just let it snow somewhere where it doesn't snow very often.
Yeah, people are watching.
Everyone
like,
breaks
the
out
heck?
their cameras and I'm just like, oh, there's your back fence with snow on it. What's that like? It's like, are you kidding me? This is the experience we're curating.
All of a sudden, snow on
is
leaves
what people
is like
like
magical.
in the snow.
Yeah.
And it does make me appreciate dog lovers more because when dogs haven't seen snow, that shit's funny. But here's my point. There was a point where Margaret snapped to the team how extremely happy she was because her roommate, whom she loves very much, was gone. And she had her place to herself with the fire on and the snow falling. And you could not contain your excitement.
No, I couldn't. I sat in the middle of my living room and just was like, this is real life.
I've seen less glee from kids that found out they were going to Disneyland than from you finding out you got some time alone in your own house.
Yeah, I know.
That's how I know you're an introvert.
Yeah. Solid. I forgot how we got there.
We were
those were,
sharing.
yes, those are your strengths.
Mm-hmm. And that was, well, I think you were sharing.
Response to that strength.
Oh,
I forget how.
trust, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I give you yours?
We went off. No, we didn't.
Okay.
No.
Well, I have to reboot my brain now.
Reboot.
I went a different direction. I would say understanding for you. You understand, and I'm going to try not to get emotional probably, but you understand me on a personal level probably more than anybody I know. And it's not because it came easy. Mm-hmm. Like you worked at it. You really worked at understanding why I am the way that I am. And being accepting of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a commodity that is in low supply. Mm-hmm. So I think you work very hard to be understanding. I think that's related to your empathic nature. Mm-hmm. Flip side is you can be too empathetic and care too much about what other people are thinking or feeling or anything like that.
You know, it's funny about that. I'm just thinking as I'm like listening to you now. Somebody was listening to one of the podcasts with my mom, and they texted me the other day and they said, "Oh my gosh, I'm listening, and you and your mom are like, I can see you nodding and saying mm-hmm at the same time," because we're very similar in that fashion. And yeah, the downside to that is being too empathetic and too concerned about how other people are doing before myself. Yeah.
I mean, you came in the office today. You very rarely make mistakes, honestly, either at work or in your personal life. Mm-hmm. And you made a mistake, and someone confronted you about it, and you were devastated.
Because it was I was worried about losing their trust.
Right.
That means a lot to me.
But we all make mistakes.
I mean, God, I'm totally human. Yeah.
And you're not great at letting yourself off the hook.
No.
That's what I'm here
It could have ruined my whole day, and it didn't.
I know. Thank God. You know what that's like? I mean, I'm here ready to go to work, and
I come in and I'm like, hey. And the good thing about this, right, was actually I didn't even think about this, is I did come in the first half an hour and say, hey, can I just tell you something? Yeah. Just to get it off my chest because, and this I followed it up with like a humorous story from a dating app that I'm on. But it's on. If I get that off my chest, I've realized as an introvert, I normally wouldn't have prior to this. Now I'm realizing the benefit of it is I get off my chest, I just share it with someone, and then it's like, okay, other people know. It's like you're helping me carry the burden, even though you're not.
No, that's totally true.
So it felt so much better. So I've gotten into the habit. I think it's a really healthy habit. I know that it helps me process better because then within the hour, I was back on track with what I need to get done that day, today.
Yeah, it's totally true. I have always been a verbal processor to a fault. Mm-hmm. I literally sometimes I cannot understand, or I cannot make a decision about how I feel about something without the ability to talk to somebody about it. And I don't even need them to say something sometimes.
Just listen,
I just need I need to verbally express it, hear it through my own ears. And maybe that's enough. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I need to know what the other person thinks. And either, give me a different perspective or validate the way that I feel.
Yeah.
You said something there that I thought about going back to.
Talking about processing with you.
Oh, so I've been on a little bit of a journey on this topic, and we don't have to talk about it now. You can divert me if you want. But I've been really working on this aspect, which is I do need to verbally process, and I've also needed immediate resolution.
Yeah.
I need a resolution as fast as possible. And lately, I've been in situations where that isn't feasible. And I've learned a lot from it. I've learned a lot from not being able to fix something right away and to really make myself twist for about 8 to 12 hours. And then coming up, realizing I feel differently about it.
Yeah.
And so it shows to me, I used to stomp my feet and say, I need this. I need immediate resolution.
Yeah.
And if I don't get it, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I felt, it makes me feel like my skin's on fire. Makes me feel like ants are crawling all over me. And I can't get rid of that feeling until we have resolution. And that created a lot of conflict in my life because no one else feels that way, or very few other people feel that way. Most people wanted time to process. And quite honestly, what I've learned in doing this, it's kind of like the thing that Mark Willis said to me that I like to quote, which is basically, if you have a problem, give it 24 hours.
Yeah.
Someone will fix it.
You've said that to several agents.
Right?
Yeah.
And so meaning that, hey, if you light your hair on fire every time there's a problem, you're going to be bald.
You'll have no hair left.
You're going to need skin grafts.
Yeah.
Like, it's a painful process versus just kind of holding your breath and waiting and breathing through it and seeing what happens if you give it time. Usually someone else fixes it for you, and you realize that you spun your wheels for nothing. And so lately what I've been realizing and testing myself on is, can I feel differently about this? Or is this true absolutely? Or is this true just only in the moment? And it's been fascinating for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting study.
Because I find peace and calm.
Yeah.
And clarity, and the resolution comes faster.
I don't know we were actually talking about this at the class that I taught on Thursday. And one of the agents brought up, because I said, next time you get upset at each other in this partnership of the owner and the admin, I want you to stop in your feelings. Feel your feelings and where they're at in your body. Feel the physical reaction. Understand that you're having a reaction, and think about, why are you having that reaction? And then wait a little bit before you respond, because and this is probably going beyond my knowledge, but something happens when you have an opposition or like you have a concern that comes up, and maybe someone attacks you about something. And I think our first immediate reaction is so physical, it's not actually our true response. And so the fact that you're waiting to respond, it's interesting, because I think you're right. I think our actual more logical response will come into play if we give ourselves more time. That's happened for me naturally because I'm non-confrontational. It's healthier now because I can do it faster. I'd like to be able to respond right away, but I realize like it's actually better for me to wait like I have, but then and come and face it straight on. Whereas before I may not have ever faced it or talked to the person that I had an issue with. So we talked about that on Thursday. It was really interesting, and she called it something like anger has different categories for her. So like the other day she was impatient angry with her little 3-year-old daughter. She wasn't completely angry. She was an impatient angry because she just wanted to go. And so we talked about that. I think being aware of how you feel physically and understanding that you're having a reaction is really critical to coming to compromise and having a healthy argument or a healthy discussion. Yeah.
All right. Should we talk about strength finders?
Yeah.
So we use behavioral assessments often. We'll have a podcast where we talk just about the different types of behavioral assessments. But because we were talking about strengths and weaknesses, and we have everyone on the team, except for those that have joined recently, have taken all sorts of behavioral assessments. And Margaret and I have both taken the Strength Finders assessment. So I thought we would just talk about those reports briefly, just to share what they say our strengths are. How do you want to do this?
Let's just go over each of our own briefly. Yeah.
You can start.
So my top 5 themes that came out from taking this, and I just took this last year. It was interesting. I hadn't ever taken it before, actually. My 5 top themes are Intellection is number 1, 2 is Learner, 3 is Achiever, 4 is Connectedness, and 5 is Relator. So Intellection number 1, just to give you a brief on each one, is it says instinctively, I characteristically read books, periodicals, documents, correspondence, or internet sites. You're willing to be mentally stimulated by thought-provoking ideas, information, data, predictions, etc. And because of your strengths, you crave information, so reading is a pleasurable activity for you. So this is just absolutely true. 100%. I'm all about learning-based, and it even says somewhere in there, I think that I will put myself in a class that's like extremely difficult or way beyond where I'm at in order to force myself to get somewhere, learn something. Second one is Learner, and actually I think that's where it talks about that. Discovering new ways to use my talents energizes me. I'm likely to escape from situations and avoid people who want me to keep doing what I already know how to do well. Oh my God, I just read that for a while. That's funny. Number 3, Achiever. Jesse and I both have Achiever. So it says, by nature, you're much more industrious when you're working on projects you feel are really important. Your fervor increases whenever the outcome directly impacts the quality of your life. Driven by your talents, you invest a lot of time, effort, and energy in winning followers. That's interesting. You aspire to leadership roles. So all about achieving. Connectedness, we talked about this earlier. It says, people exceptionally talented in the connectedness theme have faith in the links among all things. They believe there are few coincidences and that almost every event has meaning. Oh my God, I just haven't read this in a while. And then the last one is Relator. People exceptionally talented in the Relator theme enjoy close relationships with others. They find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. This is just, yeah. I mean, anytime we look back at some of these, it's something different about each assessment that we take, and this is 100% true. I love it. And I loved seeing what we actually had, and I didn't know we shared a word.
Yeah, so your number 3 is my number 1. So Achiever is number 1 for me. Activator is number 2. Maybe you want to add on some definitions of Achiever. You've already discussed.
Yeah, so Achiever discussed.
Activator.
Activator is so people who are especially talented in the Activator theme can make things happen by turning thoughts into action. They are often impatient.
A little bit on the nose.
Instinctively, you take the lead. You typically take the lead. Oh, listen to this. Perhaps your vocabulary, in and of itself, alerts listeners that your ideas and opinions carry some extra weight.
Indubitably.
Great word.
Number 3, communication. I pride myself on my ability to communicate, my ability to communicate logically, as we already discussed.
Look at this. Chances are good that you periodically regale people with funny anecdotes, timely jokes, witty comments, or whimsical ideas. Oh my God, this is so funny.
I have cousins that were from the city. Like, that's how it is.
From the city.
That's how it is when you live in the country, And whenever we had a family event, they would ask me to tell stories like This American Life. Like,
shut up.
So I would tell them some crazy story,
God.
from the ranch.
So it says here, that's too funny. I just lost the spot. It says you like to tell stories.
It's true.
Wow.
And then adaptability.
Adaptability, yeah. People who are especially talented in the adaptability theme prefer to go with the flow. They tend to be now people who take things as they come and discover the future one day at a time.
That is that's spot on.
Oh my God.
We talked about this before. We talked about this in the last podcast, that I like to move the ball forward day by day versus having like a goal, an end goal in mind. Because I find that if I just move it forward day by day, I end up in a place I would have never expected. That's great and wonderful. And then probably the one I like the most, I don't know why, when I took this assessment, this one is not awarded very often, or not very many people have this one. And that was always fascinated me, and that's ideation.
Yeah, it says people who are especially talented in the ideation theme are fascinated by ideas. They are able to find connections between seemingly disparate phenomena. So by nature, you have a rich vocabulary upon which to draw. The words you choose often expand and challenge your listeners' or readers' thinking. Totally true. Driven by your talents, you occasionally read for the pure joy of it.
So there you go. I feel like a lot of yours are connection-based, and a lot of mine are communication-based. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Completely. Totally.
And that you can see that in our...
And how we play out in real life.
Yeah, because people walk right by my office to connect with you.
Yeah, but they come to you when they want the ideas.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I love about those things, is that it just helped me right there. It's a good reminder, too. Sometimes we say, let's go back and read these or review them, and we just don't get the chance to very often, but this is a great way to do it. It's just amazing things that can come out from, there's people who study psychology, there are people who study the brain, and it's like, they know things. It makes sense. Like, sure, this doesn't tell the whole story of me or you, but it sure does help give some context.
Well, and we all want validation.
Yeah, validation is super important to me.
I think, I love that we hit on this subject, because as I think about it now, and I think about our relationship, and I think about that relationship between the implementer and the visionary, is that this is an important aspect of it.
Sure.
I think it's important.
You need to validate what you're good at.
Well, it gives us context for us.
Yeah.
It validates what we believe in ourselves. And when we have, that's a very powerful thing. When, as far as having self-confidence, self-worth,
you gotta
having
have
the freedom
those.
to move, to rely on your strengths.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing.
Totally. Interesting.
I also thought about, in relationship to this topic, I'll tell a quick story. And when I was getting divorced and I'd have my kids during my time, that during the separation part, we would, during the winter, I would often go an hour and a half away or 2 hours away, rent a cabin out in the woods, out in the snow, with me and my kids. And on the way there and back, we would listen to Gary Vaynerchuk's podcast. And my kids were 5 and 7 at the time, maybe 6 and 8. And I didn't ask, they were not at an age to, like, Daddy, can you play Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
Like, they just listened to whatever we were listening to.
Yeah.
And so I listened to Ask Gary V up and down and back and forth, probably 6 different weeks during the winter. And one day my daughter came home from school after one of these trips, and she's like, Daddy, guess what? And I'm like, what, sweetie? And she's like, my teacher asked us what we learned this weekend. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, guess what I told him? I'm like, I don't know where this is going at all. Like, and she goes, Gary V, I learned from Gary V to fall in love with my weaknesses.
Oh, wow.
And I
remember you saying this.
I think she was 8.
Yeah, she was young.
She was 2nd grade.
Yeah.
And I go, what? And she goes, Gary V told me to fall in love with my weaknesses.
She's listening.
Because we're not going to focus on those, and they're going to be there for a while. So you better learn to fall in love with them.
Oh, my God.
We're going to focus on our strengths. I'm going to focus on my strengths. And because I'm going to focus on my strengths, I've got to learn to fall in love with my weaknesses. And I'm like, holy crap, man. The fact that, she pulled this out, an 8-year-old, out of the noise.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't paying attention. She didn't mean to pay attention. She wasn't trying to pay attention. But she heard it, and look at the impact it had on her.
I wonder what her teacher said.
Oh, my goodness. No kidding.
Yeah.
She
That's
probably
like epic.
You know, she was probably over the whole thing, and who knows? But
It had to have been the biggest thing anybody said in that report out. Like, what did you learn this week? I learned how to watercolor.
Who knows? But you know what? It made me very aware.
Yeah.
Of what I was listening to with my kids.
Yeah, they're listening to everything.
They are. Mm-hmm. And I was so impressed.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even what she's taken since you told that story in the years since then. You've told me about the goals that she set goals for herself. She's done them. Like, that's just
last year, 2018.
I didn't do that.
She didn't drink soda for the whole year. Mm-hmm. For $50 from her mom and $50 from me. Mm-hmm. And this is her. She chose it. She knew it was a hard one as a kid.
Not have soda.
That is not have any soda.
Yeah.
Just water.
Yeah.
Like that for
and she's
a kid.
Not someone who's going to cheat on it either, because if she'd had soda, she would have cried or something. Like, she is too honest.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm
so honest.
So proud of her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good story.
Yeah. So there's lots out there on strengths and weaknesses. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about it extensively.
Yeah. I love that.
We wanted to talk about it because I think there's certain things we've learned to focus on and accept on about each other.
Yeah.
And other things we work on.
Yeah, totally. So. I'll put the link to this one in our show notes.
To this one? Well, I don't even have context. I'm sitting across from you. I don't know what you're talking about.
To this Strengths Finder, so people can go and take it. It's $20 to take it. I paid for Sarah and I to take it last year.
Well, if I can make a recommendation, you can buy Strength Finders 2.0 as a book.
Oh yeah, and then
for
it's
the same amount of money.
That's a good point.
Or less. And then when you get the book, there's a certificate in there that allows you to take the assessment for free. So if you have a team, order one for everybody.
Yeah.
Let them read the book. Because then when you take the assessment and you have these terms in front of you, you get a very extensive report. What we shared with you is just a brief synopsis of it. But there's a very extensive report in there about what everything means and how you can use it to your benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where'd all your steam go?
It's still here.
It is?
It's still here.
I don't know.
No, that was a great dive there. I love these I could spend like hours talking about these. Yeah.
Someday.
I'm gonna go back through and read some of these because it's been a while since some of the pieces that came out were like shocking to me. Yeah. Yeah.
What's your call to action?
Call to action?
What's our call to action? Listeners, take this information.
Oh, well, I'd love for them to take it. Actually, take the Strengths Finder and then post on social media about it. Let us know. You don't have to post your results, but maybe post your top 5 themes that came out and hashtag us or tag Jesse or myself or Pickett Street. I'd love to see what they are. I love people that actually take what we're saying and do it. Like read a book or go take an assessment or just do something with what we've been doing.
Do you remember that part of my class where I used to just tell people to read a book? Like,
just read a book.
I'd say it so snappy. Like I'd be like, read a book. You know?
Yeah, I know. I remember that part, and I thought of you when I think we talked about this last time, but on a comment on social media and somewhere, all I put was read a book.
Right. I love that answer.
Read a book.
When people are like, hey, how do I do this? I'm like, read a book. Of course, my son would go to YouTube.
Go to YouTube, yeah.
Right?
YouTube tells you everything.
But, yeah, books are where we find answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Read one.
Do it.
Margaret, this is a very subdued podcast.
What? Are you kidding me? We've been on a roller coaster. We
so
rode that
subdued.
pony, and now we're we're coming to the end of the lane for just this episode. I mean, unless we want to throw in some curveball.
We do want to make some announcements.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Margaret is teaching her class, and I want to say this. While I was gone, I was not able to attend your new class. I heard lots about it, and it's a new generation of your admin class.
Yeah,
and it's called
Perspective. Still through the lens of a director of operations.
And so I know a lot of people may have already gone to this class in years previous. I'm telling you, it's totally different. It's
completely different.
And there's some breakout parts of the class
activity
that are very impactful.
Yeah.
And it's a different class. It's more impactful.
Yeah.
And if you've gone before and you think I'm not going because I've gone before,
You need to go again.
you need to go again.
Yeah, people said they actually want to come at least once a year for just to get a refresher. But also this, I added content, so I kept it the same amount of time. I was telling you it's 4 hours. 4 hours is not enough. It's going to be 6 hours now because we tackled much bigger topics about leadership, just about what I've learned over the last 3 or 4 years that I hadn't really incorporated into that first version. So not only do we talk about job descriptions and pay and bonuses and all the hard conversations, we also talk about some big topics that are actually not really being discussed on a national level from the administrative perspective. And it's slowly coming out more, but one of the biggest compliments I got from many people there was that they left actually feeling inspired to continue working in real estate. So not even just to work on their relationship with their director of operations, but they just felt inspired to work again. So I'm really excited to teach it. We're going to be teaching, and you're coming with me to Reno.
I am.
March 15th, and we're going to do a live showing.
We are going to talk about doing a live podcast.
Oh, I think we got to do it.
Well, there's going to be
some technical things we got to figure out and stuff.
And maybe not live, but like it's going to be live in front of that audience.
Yeah.
We may then just offer it as a recorded podcast.
Yeah. And then on the 22nd, the next week, I'll be in Spokane. And so, it got me all jacked up again to like get a schedule out there of classes to teach because I realize how much I love it and how much I learn when I teach it. And it got me really just enthused again about it. So it was really fun.
So March 15th, Reno, March 22nd, Spokane. If you are listening to this and you would like an opportunity for Margaret to come teach or for both of us to come teach, that's possible.
Totally.
We teach different classes. Perspective, I started off teaching with you.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, you stand on your own. And
it took me a little bit.
It took a little bit, but you stand on your own. And now I just like to be there and do be a wallflower.
Well, I like it when you just add color to it.
Commentary to it.
No, it would have cracked me up actually. I thought about what you would have said if you were in the back of that classroom on Thursday. It would have been hilarious. Yeah, I think the podcast has helped me open up in a way, and so I have better jokes now. I recall more stories. I'm really quite good.
Do you know what jokes require?
Humor.
Context.
Context. So true. It's really true. Yeah, so that's happening. And then TBD, I've already been asked to teach in Federal Way, Boise, Michigan, Missouri. So we'll figure out what that looks like.
Federal Way and Boise will happen for sure.
I love those.
We love those market centers.
I love them so much. Yeah. So it's fun. It's exciting. And I love getting to a new group of people and bringing in new awareness about what it's like to be on a team and what leadership looks like and all that stuff. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Finally Clicked yet again. Thank you. This week, we've earned your attention. We've earned your affection. We've earned your trust. It warms our hearts.
It does.
I feel validated.
Especially on a snowy Seattle day.
I can leave here and feeling good. Despite I'm walking out into freezing cold weather.
Yeah.
Knowing that I likely will not return for maybe 5 to 6 days. Because there's another imminent snowstorm coming. And when you watch the snowpocalypse happen in Seattle on the evening news, think of us.
Yes.
Play our podcast. Let these words resonate in your ears as I do, as the snow falls around me, as we sit in front of a crackling fire.
I think you said it once before so well. Just like a warm blanket. Just imagine
Let it cover you.
Just imagine me covering you.
Like a warm blanket. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.